In the summer of 1984, something strange took over American movie theaters. And it wasn't just ghosts. It was laughter. It was lightning in a bottle. And it was a movie that mixed science fiction, slapstick, and the supernatural like nothing before. You remember the music. You remember the laughs. You probably even remember where you were when you first heard the words. Who you gonna call? This is the untold story of Ghostbusters. How a wild idea became a cultural phenomenon. How a bunch of comedians made ghost hunting cool. And why, 40 years later, we're still talking about it. Strap in, because we're going back to a time when movies had heart, humor, and just enough slime to make history. Back in the early 1980s, Hollywood was filled with big dreams, big stars, and even bigger budgets. But no one quite expected a film about ghost hunting scientists to become one of the most beloved movies of all time. Ghostbusters wasn't just another comedy or another special effects flick. It was something different. It was fun, fresh, and a little bit weird, in the best possible way. At its core, Ghostbusters combined three things America loved: good humor, clever writing, and a sense of wonder. It wasn't trying to be too serious or too scary. It was about friendship, bravery, and finding your purpose, even if that meant chasing green ghosts through the streets of New York City. For many of us, this movie was more than just entertainment. It became a part of our childhoods, our families, and our pop culture memory. The toys, the lunchboxes, the Saturday morning cartoons, we remember them all. And we still smile when we hear the siren of the Ecto-1 or see that classic no ghost logo. In this documentary, we'll take a journey behind the scenes. We'll explore how the idea came to life, who made it happen, and why it struck such a deep chord with audiences of all ages. We'll revisit the cast, the music, the legacy, and talk about what Ghostbusters still means to us today. So let's take a look back, not just at the movie, but at the moment in time when Ghostbusters showed us that sometimes the strangest ideas turn out to be the most unforgettable. To truly understand the magic of Ghostbusters, we have to go back to the early 1980s. A unique time in American history and Hollywood filmmaking. Ronald Reagan was in the White House. MTV had just launched and was changing the way we listened to music. Cable TV was new. The Cold War was still simmering in the background, but America was feeling optimistic. People were looking for escape, something fun, something big, something new. Movies were going through a major shift. The late 70s had brought serious films, gritty dramas, and political thrillers, but now the tide was turning. Audiences wanted blockbusters. They wanted to laugh. They wanted adventure. Films like Star Wars, Indiana Jones, and E.T. were leading the way. And then came comedy. Saturday Night Live was hot, and its stars were making the jump to the big screen. Chevy Chase, John Belushi, and Bill Murray were household names. People wanted humor that was smart, a little wild, and a little unpredictable. It was also a golden era for special effects. Computers were just starting to help filmmakers create things that looked impossible. But they still used practical effects too: foam, puppets, slime, all the things that made movies feel real and fun. So when Ghostbusters came out in 1984, it hit the sweet spot. It had everything: science fiction, ghosts, explosions, and big laughs. But it also had heart and originality. It was a product of its time, and yet it stood out, even in a decade full of hits. The country was ready for it. The mood was light, the culture was bold, and audiences were craving something different. Ghostbusters didn't just entertain, it captured the spirit of the times. It was a movie only the 80s could have made, and one that still holds up today. The story of how Ghostbusters got made is almost as wild as the movie itself. It started with a strange, ambitious idea from a man who loved the paranormal, Dan Aykroyd. Dan came from a family with a deep interest in ghosts and spiritualism. He believed in the supernatural and had read hundreds of books about psychic research. So he sat down and wrote a script about ghost hunters, not the kind you see on reality TV today, but space-traveling, time-jumping paranormal experts who battled ghosts across dimensions. It was big. Too big. The original script was wild, full of futuristic gear, otherworldly settings, and scenes that would have needed a massive budget. But Dan Aykroyd wasn't alone. He brought in Ramis, another comedy genius with a sharp eye for storytelling. Together, they reshaped the script into something simpler, more grounded, and way more funny. They decided to set the story in New York City, giving it that gritty, real-world feel. Instead of interdimensional ghost chasers, the Ghostbusters became struggling scientists who start a small business out of an old firehouse. It was clever, it was relatable, and it worked. The studio loved the idea but had one big condition. They had less than a year to finish the whole movie. That's right, from green light to premiere, they had only about 12 months. For a film with big stars, special effects, and a brand new concept, that was lightning fast. Director Ivan Reitman took the helm. He had already worked with Aykroyd and Ramis on Stripes, and he knew how to balance comedy with action. He brought in a team of talented writers, artists, and designers to bring the ghost world to life. Every prop, every gadget, every slime effect had to be created from scratch. The production wasn't easy. The budget was tight, the schedule was tighter, and they were inventing things as they went. But somehow, it all came together. With clever editing, practical effects, and a lot of last-minute magic, Ghostbusters was finished just in time for its summer release in June 1984. And when it hit theaters, nobody expected what came next. What truly brought Ghostbusters to life wasn't just the ghosts or the gadgets. It was the cast, the perfect mix of personalities that turned a fun script into movie magic. Each actor brought something special, and together they made a team we still love today. Let's start with Bill Murray, who played Dr. Peter Venkman. Venkman was the smooth-talking, sarcastic one of the group. He didn't seem to take anything seriously, but somehow he always came through. Bill Murray brought his dry wit and laid-back charm, and audiences couldn't get enough of him. He wasn't just playing Venkman, he was Venkman. Then there was Dan Aykroyd as Dr. Raymond Ray. Ray was the heart of the team. He was smart, kind, and totally fascinated by the paranormal. Dan played Ray with wide-eyed wonder, making the weird science feel real and fun. You could tell this was personal for him, and his passion showed. On screen, Harold Ramis, who co-wrote the script, played Dr. Egon Spengler, the brain of the group. Egon was quiet, serious, and always thinking. He didn't crack many jokes, but when he did, they landed perfectly. Harold gave Egon a calm, nerdy presence that balanced the chaos of the others, and then came Ernie Hudson as Winston Zeddemore. Winston wasn't a scientist, he was the everyman. He joined the team looking for a steady job and ended up helping save the city. Ernie brought a grounded, working-class vibe to the group. He asked the questions the audience might be thinking, and gave the team a more relatable voice. But the movie wasn't just about the Ghostbusters. Sigourney Weaver played Dana Barrett, the woman who gets caught in the middle of a supernatural crisis. Known for her role in Alien, Sigourney brought strength, elegance, and just the right amount of humor. Her scenes with Bill Murray had real chemistry. And let's not forget Rick Moranis as Louis Tully, Dana's awkward neighbor. Rick stole every scene he was in. His timing, his expressions, he made Louis unforgettable. Even when he turned into a possessed keymaster, he made audiences laugh. Each cast member brought something different. Together they formed a team that felt real, not just as characters, but as friends. That chemistry was key. You could see it in every scene, every joke, every ghost hunt. They weren't just actors playing roles. They were building a world we all wanted to be a part of. Even if you haven't watched Ghostbusters in years, there are certain moments you just can't forget. That's the power of a great movie. It leaves a mark. And Ghostbusters gave us more than a few of those iconic moments that still live in our memories. First up, who could forget the first ghost encounter at the New York Public Library? The quiet stacks, the flying books, and then, boom, that terrifying ghostly librarian. It was the perfect mix of creepy and funny. That scene told audiences right away, this movie is going to be different. Then came the formation of the Ghostbusters team. Watching Venkman, Ray, and Egon quit their university jobs and open their ghost hunting business felt both ridiculous and inspiring. Buying the firehouse, fixing up their gear, and launching the company gave us some of the film's funniest and most charming moments. And of course, there's the Slimer scene at the hotel. That little green ghost became a star in his own right. The way he slimed Peter Venkman turned into one of the movie's most quoted scenes, and made slime a pop culture trend for years. Another unforgettable moment? The first time we see the Ecto-1, the converted Cadillac ambulance racing through New York City with sirens blaring. It wasn't just a car, it was a symbol of everything cool about the Ghostbusters. Fans fell in love with it instantly. Let's not forget the Stay Puft Marshmallow Man. It was absurd, hilarious, and strangely terrifying. A giant marshmallow mascot stomping through New York was the last thing anyone expected. But that's what made it brilliant. It took a childhood snack and turned it into a city-level threat. Pure movie magic. And near the end, when the team stands on top of that apartment building facing off against Gozer, it was funny, dramatic, and full of one-liners that fans still quote today. Ray, when someone asks you if you're a god, you say yes. These scenes didn't just entertain, they stuck with us. They became cultural touchstones. People still dress up as Ghostbusters on Halloween. They still sing the theme song. They still laugh at the jokes. That's because the movie wasn't just a collection of funny moments. It was a carefully built experience, full of surprises and unforgettable scenes. When Ghostbusters hit theaters in June 1984, no one quite knew what to expect. It had comedy, science fiction, and ghosts, a strange mix even by Hollywood standards. But as soon as it opened, the response was loud and clear. Audiences loved it. Critics praised the film for its originality, humor, and perfect casting. But it wasn't just the reviews, it was the crowds. Theaters were packed. People came back. Again and again. Kids loved the gadgets, adults loved the jokes, and everyone loved that unforgettable theme song. Within weeks, Ghostbusters became a box office hit. It was one of the top-grossing films of the year, right behind Indiana Jones and the Temple of Doom and Beverly Hills Cop. But even more than its ticket sales, the movie became a cultural force. Suddenly, Ghostbusters was everywhere. It sparked action figures, lunchboxes, t-shirts, and even a Saturday morning cartoon show, The Real Ghostbusters. The No Ghost logo was instantly recognizable. The Ecto-1 siren became as famous as any movie soundtrack, and that Ray Parker Jr. theme, it climbed to #1 on the charts and stayed there for weeks. For a generation growing up in the 80s, Ghostbusters was more than a movie. It was a movement. It taught us that being smart and different could be cool, that friendship and teamwork could save the day, that you could laugh while fighting something scary, and the legacy didn't stop there. The movie led to a 1989 sequel, Ghostbusters 2, and years later, it inspired reboots and new generations of fans. In 2016, an all-female team suited up, and in 2021, Ghostbusters. Afterlife brought back the heart of the original, connecting past and present in a powerful way. Through it all, the spirit of the original stayed strong. Fans passed it down to their kids. People quoted it at parties, dressed up for conventions, and kept the Ghostbusters alive long after the credits rolled. It's rare for a film to live on for 4 decades and still feel fresh. But Ghostbusters did it. And not just because of nostalgia, but because it had something timeless, charm, humor, and heart. It wasn't just about busting ghosts, it was about creating joy, and that joy still echoes today. At first glance, Ghostbusters might just seem like a fun, silly movie about ghosts and gadgets, but if you look a little closer, there's more underneath the laughter. The story has real lessons about courage, friendship, belief, and finding your place in the world. One of the biggest messages is this: you don't have to fit the mold to make a difference. The Ghostbusters were not your typical heroes. They weren't strong, athletic, or wealthy. They were scientists, misfits, and thinkers. They were told they didn't belong, that their ideas were crazy. But they stuck to their vision, and it paid off. The movie teaches us that when you believe in something, even when others don't, it's worth fighting for. Ray, Egon, and Peter believed the paranormal was real, even when the world laughed at them. That belief led them to create something no one had ever seen before. It's a reminder that innovation often begins with a wild idea and a few brave people willing to chase it. It also reminds us of the value of teamwork and friendship. These characters were different in personality, but they respected each other's strengths. They didn't always agree, but they trusted each other. In the end, they faced incredible danger together and came out stronger because they had each other's backs. Another important lesson is this: don't take yourself too seriously. The film is full of smart people who joke, laugh, and even make mistakes. And that's okay. Life is too short to live without humor. Ghostbusters shows us that even in the face of fear, laughter can be our best weapon. Lastly, there's the idea that ordinary people can do extraordinary things. You don't need superpowers or a badge to help others. You just need a little courage, a good plan, and a willingness to act when others are afraid. Ghostbusters may be packed with ghosts and slime, but at its core, it's about human values, about heart, hope, and never giving up on your dreams. That's why it still matters today. If Ghostbusters meant something to you, if it made you laugh, if it reminded you of a time when movies were truly magical, then this is your moment to keep that spirit alive. Share this documentary with someone who grew up watching proton packs and green slime, or with someone younger who's never seen the original. Let them feel the fun, the excitement, the creativity that made the 80s so unforgettable. Drop your favorite Ghostbusters memory in the comments. Did you see it in the theater? Did you dress up for Halloween? Do you still hum the theme song? We want to hear your story, because every fan has one. Like the video if you believe great movies never get old. Subscribe for more deep dives into the films that shaped generations. Because we're just getting started, and there are so many more stories to tell. And remember, whenever life gets scary, whenever things feel strange, who you gonna call? You already know the answer. Some movies fade with time. Ghostbusters didn't. It stuck around, not just because of the jokes or the special effects, but because it gave us something to believe in. It reminded us that even the strangest ideas can become something beautiful. If you've got the courage to try, it gave us characters we still quote, music that still makes us dance, and a message that still rings true. Be bold, be curious, and never be afraid to stand up for what you believe in, even if it's a little out there. We hope this journey brought back memories, laughter, and maybe even a few goosebumps. Whether you were a kid in 1984 or watching with your kids years later, Ghostbusters gave us all something to hold on to. So here's to the fans, the filmmakers, and the fearless Ghostbusters who taught us that sometimes the most powerful force in the world is a good laugh and a little bit of heart. Thanks for watching.